So hi, Tracy. Welcome to another series in interviews that I'm doing on photo books. Photo books with the loosely used term, and you and I, the majority of the people who I'm working with are clients who I've worked with, who I'm very familiar with their projects. So I'm really happy to welcome you today to focus on One Cancer Patient, your book, the subtitle, A Unique Photo Journal to Guide Difficult Cancer Conversations. So I wanted to just give a little bit of background and then introduce a quote that I think is valuable about this book in particular. So Traci Asher has had cancer 3 times. During her journey with the disease, she took along 3 photographers and also took selfies, and friends and other family photographed her as well. One of them was her father, Warren Perlstein, whose work is featured in this book. The result of the journey is One Cancer Patient. One Cancer Patient is a website, exhibition, and self-published book that just came out for cancer thrivers and their caregivers. Traci documented the journey in her own words through her journals. And she started working with me when in remission after the 3rd instance. And we'll talk a little bit today about the bookmaking process and how we organically got around to producing the self-published book that Traci actually did. So the quote here from Traci that's included in the book: "Let this book be your guide. Fold pages, write notes, show the images to your doctors, and ask them to compare it to the journey you're about to embark on. There's a normalcy intertwined with the chaotic stress involved in being a cancer patient. All cancers are different, and I can only speak to what I've gleaned personally from my experience. Much of what I've learned is universal among cancer patients. Each time my life was turned upside down with another diagnosis, I was given the gift of an opportunity to expose and explain more about a battle with cancer." So Traci, I'm so happy that you are here to talk about your book today. So, and you recently had a book signing too, right?
Yeah, just about a week and a half ago, the cancer center, the Disney Family Cancer Center, who treated me over the last 9 years, when they've been hearing me talk about this book for so long that they were so excited when I showed them the final product and said, "It's available." And they said, "We want to be the first. We want to have a party. We want to celebrate this." And so they hosted the launch party. It was really, really nice. They did a great job. It was beautiful.
Yay. Well, yay. I want to talk a little bit about the history of the bookmaking process, but since I have the object here in front of me, and there is, I did kind of bookmark the chapters that are included in here, and some of them are treatments, port versus pick, breast radiation, diet, not sexy, brain radiation, sex and intimacy, it's annoying. And so do you want to kind of talk a little bit about the structure of this object now and why you did the chapters like you did?
Sure. Well, for one, when I began, I had only been diagnosed once. And so it was going to be very easy. Like, this is it. This is breast cancer, the end. Photographs, Then, after subsequent diagnoses with metastatic breast cancer, trying to figure out how to compile such a large story, it was difficult. Everybody had opinions, and I finally decided I just have to do it chronologically. And once I put it together in chronological order, I was able to see common threads.
Mm-hmm.
And it was those common threads that created the chapters.
Yeah, exactly. And when you and I first met, I think you were looking for more art publishers, it seemed like. And then organically it developed into, the more that we talked, it's like this should be a usable, affordable object for someone. And it feels like that if you're going through a journey like that, you can only experience what has happened in the, well, you can only experience what you're experiencing now, but you only have knowledge of what's happening in the, what happened in the past. And then you don't know what your journey is going to be like for the future. So it's like, it makes complete sense considering it's comparing life for it to be in chronological order.
Yeah. I mean, I think actually I probably fought you a little bit at the beginning on how much to write. You know, I had my journals, I had my ideas, but I also thought nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's a lot of work. and does anybody really care? And so at first I think I came to you and saying, oh, I have all these photos and I just want to do a photo book. And you were very clear and adamant that there's much more to this and it needs to be understandable and explained, not only what's going on in the images, but why.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you won. And you're right. And you know, I had to hear it and I had to just do it. I had to just take the time and do it. And yeah, I mean, it's a great resource and I've gotten nothing but amazing feedback about it. So I'm really happy with how it turned out.
I think so too. There's like some sections that I kind of marked here that most definitely are universal. I mean, you have your own personal experience, but you say in the one section of I have cancer, how are you? Expect your relationships to change. I've struggled to understand why this happens, but interestingly, there will be mere acquaintances who choose to really step up and close friends who may disappear. You know, and there's just little sections like that where there's just little tidbits of like, this is okay. You know, this happens with probably a lot of people. And it's okay to have these things happen to you. And this happens like in a universal sort of way. So I think this could resonate with a lot of people, because you don't just talk about your specific experience. And
Yeah.
That's probably something you've discussed with other thrivers.
Oh, sure. I mean, the things I write about, some of the chapters are specific to cancer, while others, like the one you kind of read, is sort of universal, because if you've ever experienced a big medical emergency, not everybody, if you haven't, it's hard to explain how to speak to somebody who is, whatever it is, you know, whatever the thing is, or even personal loss, you know, goes under that umbrella too. And what I found was missing in books on the topics, all those topics, were visuals. Were, you know, you may not see, part of the problem may be that outsiders can't see what's going on under your clothes, the privacy of your home, in your head, at the doctor's office. And you can't possibly burden everybody with all those stories. So, being a shy person made it difficult, but once I got into it and got used to it, it was the photography, the art, there was therapy. It was therapeutic for me also to be able to do it and see the progress and share it and hopefully take some of the fear out of the unknown that people going through it and people watching people go through it can get a little extra calm, you know, to see what it looks like.
And there's something too for the, like, I did school photography for a little while, and I was able to photograph a few football games. And I at least once did like a complete tuck as they're coming at you. But there's something about looking at it through the lens that, even though, like your father, for instance, was probably incredibly, I can't make assumptions, but I'm going to make some assumptions, but incredibly connected to it when he wasn't behind the camera. But there's also something that acts, if that's a medium that you use, which was almost like kind of you to allow your father to be so present in that sort of way, but just to use photography as catharsis, and photography to disconnect in some sort of way, and deal with it with aesthetics in some ways too.
Yeah. I had a woman, it was a woman photographer who did the nude photography.
Mm-hmm.
But she herself was a breast cancer thriver and wasn't always comfortable in hospitals or doctor settings. She did some, but she wasn't comfortable, and I could tell. My dad, who as a family member and as my father wanted to be in the hospital room, he wanted to be there, and be a caregiver that way, had an inside seat to that stuff. And you can see, I mean, it wasn't a comfortable situation for him. So you're right, giving him that opportunity to use what he's his natural, he's been a professional photographer his entire career. That's his career, my entire life. So it gave him an outlet. It was therapeutic for him, and it gave him something else to focus. I think you said that, something else to focus on than just staring at his daughter in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
And even then, there's a story in there where even then, as I'm wheeled out to surgery or wheeled back in from surgery, coming out or going into anesthesia, I knew my dad was there, and I knew I needed to say, hey, you need a distraction. And I would go like this with my eyes closed, should be concentrating on anything, going like this. Photograph, don't forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it helped both of us. And now it's going to help a lot more people too.
Yeah, that's what we hope. That was the purpose in doing this. So you want to talk a little bit, like I'll show a few page spreads. That's the contact sheet. And then there's some of the images in the chapters back in the journals. And I'll show just a couple more, since we're not having a little slide presentation. This one's very strong, and this one's one of Georgia's images. But do you want to talk a little bit about, you had one photographer photographing, you had three photographers. Do you want to just mention the photographers who were working on the project?
Yeah, at the very beginning, I hired a photographer who lived near me in Los Angeles. I'm from Chicago. My dad lives in Chicago still. So I hired somebody that was close, a female, because I had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So I knew what that was going to entail. And it was really just for me. I was just going to do before and after photos. So Georgina Cates.
Oh, Georgina.
Georgina Cates,
yeah.
She began photographing me very artistic ways. It wasn't pragmatic. It wasn't, at doctors and here and there. It was like, let's do really beautiful black and white photography. And I'm like, that would be great, because it was just going to be for me. And then it just sort of evolved. I said, I told you she was also a breast cancer thriver. So we really got into it, and it was fun, and we just started doing more. Eventually she moved away. She moved to Europe. And so when I got diagnosed the second time, I needed to find somebody else. And a very good friend of mine, Stacy Cain Photography. I asked her if she would be willing to help, and she said yes, of course. So that was great. She sort of filled in the gaps during the second diagnosis. And then by the third diagnosis, it was really kind of, I felt like I had kind of tapped out my friends for photographs, and really leaned on my dad at that point. Most of the photography at the end and sprinkled throughout is from my dad.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the chronology kind of follows almost 3 different aesthetic visions too of what your journey, their own type of journalism of how they wanted to capture the scene.
Yeah. And, surprisingly, we didn't plan it. I didn't want to take away from each person's vision or strength. So I didn't really put any rules on it. And I feel as though just the aesthetic of the photography tells a story. And that just came naturally. But I feel I see it starting in black and white, and then it moves into bright colors by the end. And it goes from sort of, I would say, more of like a fantasy, glamorous vision to more pragmatic, more medical, but also more fun and bright.
Yeah.
So it has like that.
And a few more metaphorical kind of things too, like the one that I held up, like, what was it? Girl meets world.
Girl meets world.
Yeah.
That we just found. Yeah. I think I was working and we found it.
Yeah. And then like you and your husband, right? And you two do talk about the relationship too with, and then, and all these ones here where you continue to do a lot of these couple images.
That was something my dad started way before any diagnosis, where he would come to visit and he would want to take a picture of me and my husband, and we're fun and we're goofy, but you're not always into like, okay, right, great. And so instead of like hamming it up, we would just stand there, and it sort of became a thing. It did. It became a thing. It became a standing series. That's what we call it, the standing series. And it just naturally became a series of photographs by my dad over time of Jim and I just standing there.
Yeah, but
I love them now.
Yeah, and it's a perfect symbol of, because you do talk about the relationship and how he completely stood by you. And then you had lifestyle shifts too, because you do have a chapter on diet. It's a very short one, but I know that you're trying to do more with the YouTube channel and putting more recipes up there too. So did you feel that diet did have an effect on how you felt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. Going through cancer treatment the first time, it wreaks havoc. I mean, in different people in different ways. But one of the ways it wreaked havoc on my body was stomach issues. You're not hungry, then you're nauseous, then you're losing weight, you have to gain weight. And it just caused so many problems. So I did some research, and it was like, I just kept seeing vegan, more fruits, more vegetables, less meat. I just kept seeing that over and over. So I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And, after 2 more diagnoses, having been vegan, no problems for me.
Oh, wow.
Not a single problem with my stomach, right? With eating and stomach issues. So, you know, study one, like one study of one person,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I can say 100% of me, it worked.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. The study
you
group
know,
of like n equals one, or yeah,
yeah,
exactly, yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, you have to find the thing that does work best for you. So I want to talk a little bit too about the book process, because I will have some photographers who would watch this and who are probably very curious. And yours differs from some clients that I've worked with, because I do work with a lot of art clients. But as we started to have more and more conversations, like we alluded to in the beginning of this interview, and we talked about how do we make this, who's your audience? Who is truly your audience for this book? And then where does that play into what type of object that you produce, and what's the price point, and how you end up producing it? And some of the discussion I know was, this is not to establish your career as an art, as an art photographer, so that you can be in big gallery collections. And so if you're going to do that, and it's not so that your book, if your book goes down to $5 online, we even talked about that, like on Amazon as a used book, then great, it might reach more and more people too. And you're also wanting to do some speaking engagements, I think, about this, and reach out so you can get the message out to more and more people. But so you want to talk a little bit about, if you want to mention some of in the beginning, when you and I first started, you're welcome to, talking about reaching out to publishers, but then also talk about how you got to this final product that you have now.
So, yeah. So, the first thing was, because I mentioned I wasn't really hip to writing a whole lot. So my first thing was, it's going to be a coffee table sort of picture book that maybe could help people and be beautiful. So somebody recommended the Los Angeles Center of Photography as a resource. So I checked them out and I took some classes. I don't know, took some classes, listened to some seminars, one of which is where I discovered you. You were giving a talk on photo books. So I sort of started there. And then when, I reached out to you afterwards, told you my story. And that's when you and I started talking about, this could be more, this could help more people and reach more people, and add more text and whatnot to it. So we were doing that. We were talking about trying to find publishers. It happened to be around COVID, so that was really hard. No, people were just not doing really anything. I think that made it very difficult. So you and I focused on how much can we do on our own? And that's sort of how it went, was, what can we do? What can I learn how to do on my own? And taught myself websites, taught myself Keynote, how I would want it to look, and then constantly sharing stuff with you it would be, look what I did, and then 5 minutes later it would be like, don't look at what I did, I've completely redone it and I'm going to send it to you again. And I think that was one of the benefits of the year of COVID. We had a lot of time where nothing else was happening. Everybody was home and we could really collaborate. And I think that was one of the biggest benefits. It gave us a lot of time sitting around saying, no, I can do better. Or have you thought of this? And how to reach out to more people, how to make it as universal as possible. And that my goal, which you understood and agreed with, was, although I would like to not go broke self-publishing this, The main goal is to help as many people, get it out to as many people as possible, in a way that was feasible for me to do.
Mhm.
And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it looks fantastic. And then I'll show a few more images too. I mean, there's some great stuff in here, but an incredible amount of just content too, like this one on treatments, but it relates to more of like the mental, physical, and emotional journey, and maybe little hints at spiritual too, if you want to throw some of that in there. But it's like all the facets and relationships. So it doesn't just talk about the journey, the technical side.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information about the technical side. If
Yes.
that's what you want to know, you can go find that all over the internet and, all over the place. So I wanted to make it easily digestible for anyone, a patient or a caregiver, or even a nurse or a doctor, to show somebody in their office who's glazed over, freaking out about a diagnosis of some kind, with an image. It's the photo that I hope speaks more, or as much as what I write, to really kind of bring it together and say, like, you can do this. This is what it looks like. Don't let your mind go off into the worst movie you've ever seen about cancer. Sure, that's a possibility, but you don't need to start there.
Yeah.
Start somewhere a little bit easier, a little bit calmer. Let me help you. Let the book help you with that. Yeah. And I'm like, what did I want to say? And there's humor, it's not so serious all the way through. And that was also very important to me. And I think you will have to tell me, I think you got me. I think you got my personality pretty early on. And I think you understood that there needs to be humor. There's pragmatism, but I'm also, sarcastic. I try to just say what my truth is, what I think the truth is, don't sugarcoat it. And if there's something worth making fun of, okay, I'll do that too. It was funny at the time, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, there is
That's
most
okay.
definitely some lightness. It's like it's incredibly honest, I think, but also just like through the ups and downs on your journey. But whereas someone else could just pull you down and you feel the incredible weight of something like this and the gravity, you're able to, through your words, try to experience what you went through, but without feeling just pulled and pulled and pulled. That you treated it as part of your journey during life, and with each time and you've kind of pulled it up, and then you're here now, so it's and you don't necessarily probably want to use that too, but it's also a story of hope for people to be able to read. And then if it gives you the opportunity just to experience and just to know that they're not alone in some of the ways that they're feeling.
Yeah. That's the big thing is, at the end, before we get to, I want to read the last chapter when we get towards the end here, because it does the big picture is you want people to be comfortable talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to keep it in. You don't have to keep secrets and let it fester. That's okay. And it's okay to have feelings that you may not think are okay. Guilt or annoyance
Mm-hmm.
or ungratefulness or anger. Those are all fair game, no matter what. There's no reason why you need to feel different about a medical issue than you do about traffic, right? Like, you can feel what you feel. That's okay. People are going to understand or they're not going to understand. And that's what I want to show in the book, that, yeah, why not? Why not feel those things? It's your life.
Tell me, but I'll let you read that as we go out. So, but before we do that, just tell me, or tell anyone who may be watching what the website is, and if you have a YouTube or your Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to do everything. I got the website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Flickr. It's all linked on the website too. And it's the number 1 cancer patient, 1CancerPatient.com or at 1CancerPatient. So we got really lucky.
Right,
it's the same everywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Traci. Yeah. So you can get the book there and find out more about the work and Traci's exhibitions. There's I guess you could have it be a complete packaged exhibition if someone wanted to display it, or any kind of speaking engagements or speaking opportunities with you. So, and then we'll finish the interview with a reading. And then Traci.
Thanks. So this is the last chapter, and it's called "And Finally." And finally, this. Start thinking of yourself as a superhero, because you are one. When friends started calling me a warrior, or after my oncologist referred to me as a Wonder Woman, I was too modest to agree. It seemed that I was just doing what I must in order to survive, and that didn't feel particularly heroic. After all, what choice did I have? But after moving through my own journey, as well as witnessing those of so many others, it suddenly occurred to me that after all we've gone through, we've become thrivers, and that makes us fierce forces of nature. Now, what I feel most often is victorious, and you will too, however your story may turn out. We tend to focus on the outcome as a measure of success, but the real win is that you still got in the ring and put up your dukes. Meet you after the fight. Love, Traci.
Yay, thanks so much, Traci. That's a great conclusion to the interview, but also to the book. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, well, I enjoy working with you, and I'm happy to spread the message about this book. I think it's very valuable for especially people who are going through cancer, but I think it's an engaging read for people who are going through other difficulties too. So thank you so much. Thanks for the interview, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Traci.